In the name of Lord Jesus Christ, we shall continue to study from the Servitude of Jesus. In fact, as we mentioned it on Friday, when we talk about the Servitude of Jesus, is basically the life of Jesus. Because the purpose of his life is to serve. He came to the world to serve his generation. And then through his servitude, that he glorified the name of the Heavenly Father. So when we talk about servitude of Jesus, literally, we can touch upon every aspect of his life. So we can only take four stories, four recordings of his life for our mutual learning. So on Friday, our first and second class, that we first of all talk about that Jesus was led by the Spirit to the wilderness, and to be tempted by Satan. So as we mentioned, if you really have the desire to serve, then you must overcome the temptation ahead of you. So young people, yes, at your age, you are in the most dangerous time of your life. And you are relatively vulnerable at this age, from high school to college, and then probably in the early time when you graduated and start working. That you were young. You are young. And the world seems so fancy and tempting. Everything is new. Outside world seems so glamorous. Because many of you were brought up in a very simple environment. That you grow up in a Christian family with Christian value. You are surrounded by church member who holds the same value. You spend a lot of time in church and attend the spiritual events. However, for you, that the outside world were so unfamiliar, at the same time tempting. So this is the age that Satan aimed upon, because he knew, Satan knows, by placing a stumbling block in front of you at this age, that he might be able to score high by ruining a life of a potential powerful servant in the future. Among you, some of you that got prepared to do great things for him. However, by setting up the trap and stumbling block right now, that for Satan is a small investment with a high potential of big return. By luring you with physical desire, sexual temptation, or lust for the world, desire for the material, that Satan might only place a very small bet, but who knows, he might knock out someone who were deemed, who were prepared for something great in the house of the Lord. Also, at the end of the day, there were very little that we can do or your parents can do. We pray for you. We hold events. We hope for your survivals. We really do not want to see any of you come to us and say, I am so sorry, Pastor, I need to talk to you. I really, this is that's you know, that's something that really difficult for those who care for you, love you, and also had high expectation on you. So we do not want you to live in regret for the rest of your life. And the only thing we can do is, now we can pray for you, and in here we can relentlessly tell you to be careful, to be careful. However, that at the end of the day, you are the one that make decision of your life, and you have to deal with the consequence. So number one, if you want to serve, talking about servitude, you need to begin by breaking the temptation of Satan. A breakthrough, overcome, defeat the temptation of Satan. Without that, how can we continue? So number one, we talk about that Jesus overcame the temptation of Satan and ready to serve. Second, we also talk about the action that Jesus took, that he went through the villages and cities, bring the gospel of heaven, and then care for their life. That's the second thing that we learn. And continue for today, we will learn two more recording pertaining to Jesus. Number three, we want to talk about the spirit of the servitude. As we mentioned it on Friday, when you serve with the right mind, right mentality, then servitude accounts for some value. The holy work is different than the work in the society. When you work in the future, that the boss only care if you are getting things done. When you are at work, you are giving an assignment. The boss only care about the result. That he is not going to care if you work happily, willingly, or you work with grumble and complain. For the boss, he doesn't care. He only care, are you able to deliver? Okay. So the society is very much result oriented. However, serving in the church, participating in holy work is different. The society is result oriented, but in the church, holy work in the eyes of the Lord is process oriented. During the process, your effort, your dedication, your mentality, your mindset, all those account for the credit that you receive for your work. That's why it's very important when we serve, we must have the right mentality, the right spirit. Let's turn to John chapter 12. John chapter 12. John chapter 12, verse 20. Now there were certain Greeks among those who came up to worship at the feast. Then they came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and asked him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip came and told Andrew, and in turn, Andrew and Philip told Jesus. But Jesus answered them, saying, the hour has come that the Son of Man shall be glorified. Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. Okay. This is the passage that we want to address regarding to the servitude of Jesus. Then here, what is the background? The background is, well, you know what? Let's go a bit further back. If you go to verse 12, the next day, a great multitude that had come to the feast, when they heard Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him and cried out, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, the King of Israel. Okay. Okay, so what is the background that we see in here? A famous Jesus entered into Jerusalem in glory. Okay. So that's the background. Next, during the festival, there were some Greek came and say, "Oh, sir, we wish to see Jesus." Why is that important? No. Okay. In verse 23, when Jesus said, "The hour has come that the Son of Man shall be glorified." So when Jesus was talking about being glorified, the glorification, if it's in the perspective of the eyes of men on earth, what is the glory? The glory in the eyes of men on earth is when you enter into Jerusalem, having people shout Hosanna, Hosanna, having them place their garment before you so that the donkey can step on it. It's when they come and shout, "Glory to you." Okay, so that's glory, right? Usually that's what people prefer. That's what people believe. Just like some of the member, their glory, their seeking, their so-called glory of God is always about miracle and sign. So sometimes they get really frustrated with church, with the pastor, or with God. Come on, show a miracle. Come on, resurrect the dead. When you have someone coming in wheelchair, let him get up, walk. Because some member, they only build their vision in God, the glory in God, they all build it upon. It must be miracle and sign. So when they do not see church has have a lot, when they do not see a lot of testimony of, oh yeah, I see a vision, angel coming, oh heaven open, oh the glorious light, oh water turning to blood, they get frustrated with church. And when they have truth seekers coming in sickness, and even after pastor laying hands, nothing happened, then they get frustrated with the pastor. How come how come you are unable to perform miracle? Where is the power of God? You know that some members are like that. Very, very shallow in belief, in faith. Because that was the glory that they were seeking. They get angry at God. That, hey, God, if you do more miracles, then it will be easier to preach the gospel. And then the TJC will be the #1 in the world. We will be on the newspaper all the time. You know that on the newspaper, there will always be interview about, oh yeah, we allow the cripple to walk. Oh, we allow the artisan to suddenly all recover with an IQ 180. All right. Oh, even we resurrect the dead. Oh, you know what? So-and-so, a great man, a famous guy, the most rich man on earth died. And then we went and then we resurrect the guy. And then he donate $5 billion to TJC all over the news. Don't you think that kind of faith is very immature? There is a reason that Jesus did not born in the royal family of Roman emperor. Think about it. Why so childish? Always talking about, oh, the glory is miracle. The glory is this and the glory is that. The glory is when the whole city come and shout, Hosanna, Hosanna. That's glory. Do you know that the same people after 1 week, they were the ones shouting, crucify him, crucify him. So if your glory bestowed upon the world will eventually disappoint you. That's how it works. They have no problem shouting Hosanna because they have no problem shouting crucify him. Is that the glory that you prefer or that you seek after? Okay. So, okay, now Jesus entered into Jerusalem. People shouting glory. And second, let's go to verse 20. Verse 20. Now there were some Greeks. They came and said that we want to see Jesus. We wish to see Jesus. Is this a glory for the people in that generation? Yes. Why? Because Greek represent the wisdom. Greek culture is one of the most prominent culture in that generation. Greek philosophy, you know that at that time the culture is dominating by philosophies. And Greek, they are the origin, the source of the thinkers. So yeah, usually Greek are known as the wise men, the men with wisdom. So although in the Roman Empire is dominated by the Rome, but culture-wise is dominating by Greek culture. Let's turn to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 22. 22. For Jews request a sign, and Greek seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified. To the Jews, a stumbling block, and to the Greeks, foolishness. So what does that tell you today? The Greek, they are known as the well-educated, the learned. It's not about their social status or their wealth. It's that they are known for their wisdom. But now you have a bunch of Greeks known as the men of wisdom came and say that we wish that we can meet, we can see Jesus. Jesus was only the son of a poor carpenter born in a manger. So the Bible told us in Isaiah that he doesn't have the beautiful countenance for people to admire. But now, perhaps for many people, this is the moment of glory. Even the wise Greek need to come and seek the word of wisdom from him. Like how the Queen of Sheba traveled all the way for the wisdom of Solomon. Wow, that's glory, right? So can you imagine that that your professor humbly come to you and say, oh, please teach me and enlighten me. Okay? Or your boss say to you that I think you are much better than me and you know much more. Maybe you should be my boss. Okay? So that was the moment of glory for many people. For many people. So you know that in here, before Jesus said the hour has come, it's time for the Son of Man to be glorified. Before that, there were two incidents. One is enter into Jerusalem, promoted by people. The other one is that the Greek seeking for his wisdom. That was also the glory from the eyes of men. But what do we see in here? When Jesus said, it is time for glory, for the Son of Man to be glorified. Was he referring to entering to Jerusalem? No. Was he referring to having Greek, seeking for the words of the wise master? No. When he said that now is the time for the Son of Man to be glorified, where is the glory? The glory is when he said, most assuredly I say to you, unless a grain of wheat fall into the ground and die. So in the perspective of Jesus Christ, and in a teaching for you and I today, what is glory and how do we obtain this glory? It's never about being, achieving, and success in the world. Just because one day you become the most wealthy man on earth. Who knows? Maybe. Oh, by the way, when you become the most wealthy man on earth, make sure that you still do your tithe, okay? So one day when you become a prominent figure, you are the prime minister. No, sorry, we don't have prime minister. When you become the president, when you become the CEO of the Fortune 500 company, when you become this and that, that and that. So when you become so somebody on earth, let me tell you one thing, that even people might know you as, oh yeah, I know you. Oh, Chris, yeah, he's this prominent figure. Oh, I didn't know that he was a TJC member. TJC, oh, suddenly be on the newspaper. Is that how you bring glory to the Lord, to church, or to your life? Unfortunately, no. No. You become a billionaire doesn't mean that you bring glory to the Lord. But the moment when they say, oh, yeah, I know Chris, a very genuine guy, very wealthy, but at the same time, very humble. That's how you bring glory to the Lord. Okay? So in here, the glory that Jesus talked about, what did he say? He said that a grain of wheat fall and die. That's the glory. When someone is willing to sacrifice, when someone is willing to commit and devote, when someone is willing to go the extra mile for the sake of the Lord, that's what glory is about. Okay, so number one, please do remember that in here, what is the true glory in the eyes of God? And what is the true glory in your life? When you have time, when you have the chance, do go and read John chapter 17. That's one of the most important chapter in the Bible. John chapter 17. It clearly, in the most detail, depict the prayer of Jesus. And yes, you do not find it elsewhere. Very often you only find, yeah, Jesus prayed, Jesus prayed to the Heavenly Father. But in John chapter 17, it tells you what Jesus was praying about in detail. And he began by, Father, glorify me. Why? What make he think that he deserved the glory from Heavenly Father? He said that everything you asked me to do, I completed. That's why, glorify me. Okay. So, if we continue, now we know the meaning. Now we know the meaning of glory. Okay. The true glory. We know the meaning of the true glory. Next. Here's a grain of wheat fall into the ground and dies. It remains alone. Okay. So the second, we want to focus upon owning a grain of wheat. So what do we want to talk about? Owning a grain of wheat refer to do not underestimate yourself. You are only, of course, do not overestimate yourself either. Okay, let's go to Romans chapter 12. Let's turn to Romans chapter 12. Verse 3. For I say, through the grace given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, as God has dealt to each one's a measure of faith. Okay. So in here, though that it says, do not look more highly of yourself than you ought to think. But then it says that look at yourself soberly, in according to the measure of faith. So what does that mean? It means that, don't be proud, don't be prideful, but at the same time, you do not underestimate yourself. Too high, too low, neither are good. Too high, you become proud. But too low, how can you be so? You know that when we talk about low in self-esteem, it's different than being humble. When you look at yourself too low, that's not humbleness. That's lacking of faith and trust in the Lord. The Lord create you. The Lord make you in the way that he believes is the best. Just like an artist's creation. Okay? So when you complain and say that, oh no, I am no use, I am just no good, no use, no this, no that, I am the worst of the worst, you are not only talking about yourself, you are actually criticizing about the artwork of the Lord. You are not humiliating yourself, you are humiliating your creator, the one that made you in the way that he believed to be the most beautiful. But then if you feel very unappreciated, that basically you just tell the master, oh, I think that you did a lousy job on me. Okay, so we do not want to be a prideful person. No, being proud is not what God likes. But do not allow your so-called humbleness, humility, to become a low self-esteem. That's not good either. Okay? That's not good either. So even in here, when you say that, yes, you are owning a grain of wheat, what can you do with a grain of wheat? Think about it. What can you, by the way, what can you do with the wheat? Oatmeal. What else? Cereal? Okay. I don't know. What can you do? You can eat them like rice? Oh, okay. Someone is giving me answer. I actually have no idea. Oh, okay. Animal food. Who came up with that? All right. Animal food. All right. Oh, that remind me one thing. Oh no, I can. This is live broadcast. Sorry, not going to share. Yeah. So a grain of wheat. Then here says that it's only a grain of wheat that is a reminder for you that you are merely a grain of wheat. So from that perspective, nothing. Okay. From that perspective. Okay. So from that perspective, that knowing that you are owning a grain of wheat, so you are greatly restricted, limited. Okay. So if you go to the flour mill and then you take a grain of wheat and say, can you mill this for me? What do you think that will happen? Yeah. The mill owner will kick you out of the mill. Are you kidding me? Who is going to mill a grain of wheat? Because 1 grain of wheat value for nothing. Okay. So number one, there's nothing for you to be proud of. Doesn't matter how accomplishing, how smart, how able, how high of an IQ that you have. We are all owning a grain of wheat. So like in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, Paul said that no one of flesh can boast in front of the Lord. So number one is we are owning a grain of wheat, nothing to be proud of. But from different perspective, vice versa, even you are owning a grain of wheat, do not belittle yourself. Because in here, Jesus said that even 1 grain of wheat can't produce much. The seed being planted and result growing and make produce of many, many weeds. So as we say that, do not be proud, overestimate yourself, but at the same time, please do not underestimate yourself, because one person can make a differences. Look at the time of Elijah. One person make a differences of that era, that generation. Look at in the same generation of Elijah, there was another man called Obadiah. Probably you do not know. Obadiah was the steward, the housekeeper of King Ahab. But what did the Bible say? That Obadiah, during the most dreadful time of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, that Obadiah, he hid and provide for 100 prophets of the Lord. One person saved 100 prophets for the Lord. That's a grain of wheat. Okay. So when we talk about a grain of wheat, you don't need to only look at the superhero like that of Elijah. Oh, perform miracle, call fire down from heaven, kill all the false prophets. Super. No. Even Obadiah, a very, very timid man, that he was able to go beyond his ability and provide and saved 100 prophets. Okay. So do not think, oh, I cannot do anything. Many years ago, in one of the SSC, at the end of the SSC, a young sister say that my family, my parents, has not been very devoted to God and to church. I think that was in testimony or reflection in public. I mean, she was being very straightforward because she was young. So So she just said that she was sharing that my family, they only attend Sabbath and they only barely meet the minimum of faith. And I want to do something about it. I mean, she was, I think, J1, E2 or J1, just a young girl. She said, I want to do something about it. People might feel, hey, come on, you are so young. What can you do about it? It's your parents that we are talking about. They get to decide what's going on in the house. But then, after SSC, few weeks later, we actually heard it from the parents. We actually heard it from the parents in the church telling us that their young daughter brought them to shame. The young daughter come home and share with them about what happened in the SSC and what she learned in SSC. And then she asked She asked Daddy and Mommy, God loves us so much. Are we going to do a bit more for him? So when she said that, the parents told us, when she said that, the parents were so embarrassed. So embarrassed. Because for the parents, they are just trying to hit the basic, like minimum, or barely making it. Even that, reluctantly. They only attend Sabbath, and there's no cultivation, no prayer, nothing at home. Sabbath is, they only did that because that was probably the lowest of the lowest minimum. And after the young daughter said that to the parents, and then the parents was quite embarrassed and moved by the words of the young girl. And then they start attending evening service as well. And then they even start their family altar by having a short Bible reading and prayer with the family. It all begins from where? From the words of one little young girl who makes the differences. Like the young Israel girl who said to Naaman, go and find the prophet, for God is in Israel. From the testimony of one young girl, bring the glory of the Lord upon General Naaman. So if you feel that no, I am just too weak to do it. I am, that there are so many able people in the church. Having me, not having me makes no differences. When you say that to avoid responsibility, or when you say that so because you really feel you are incompetent, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. You might not be able to change the whole world, but you are able to change as much as you can. We all heard about the story of the little boy by the seashore. Now the tide has retreated, and there were a lot of sea stars left on the shore to die, to be dried and die, to dry and die. So the young boy was picking up one sea star after another, and then tossed it back to the ocean, while an old man passing by and saw what he was doing. He said, young man, that's so foolish. Did you see there were millions of sea stars on the shore? How many can you save? Well, sometimes people call that the wisdom of the elderly, or the wisdom of life. What? Why bother? Why bother? You cannot change anything. But the young boy say, yeah, I cannot save every one of them, but at least I can save the one I am holding in my hand right now. Do not become this kind of old people. Not old in age, but old in mentality. Why bother? Look at other people. Nobody is doing it. Why stay fervent? Why be zealous? Why taking more holy work when no one else cares? Oh, yeah? You do holy work not because other people care. You do holy work because God loves you very much. Do not allow that kind of mentality and say, doesn't matter. If I do it, if I don't do it, doesn't matter. Doesn't mean, think about it, if everybody thinks this way, then eventually no one will be serving in the house of the Lord. So a grain of wheat, which is you can decide how this grain of wheat shall be used. Because in here it says, a grain of wheat, if you always want to preserve yourself, keep yourself, and protect yourself, you do not want to sacrifice, you do not want to put in effort, you do not want to commit, then at the end of the day, you are still only a grain of wheat, which means valueless. A grain of wheat is only valuable when it becomes the seed. and being buried and die. And by breaking the shell, you know that in order for the grain of wheat to sprout and bear much more grains, you have to break the shell. So you need to fall, you need to be buried, you need to break the shell that contain you in order to produce and begin a new life. So if you are unwilling to die for Jesus, I'm not talking about literally. What I'm talking about, if you are unwilling to sacrifice for Jesus, die and being buried, you will always be owning you. Only 1 grain. Yeah, maybe some value, but not much. Okay. But when you are able and willing to bury yourself, you know that when you are buried, where will you be? Under the ground, which means that nobody get to see you. Remember what we talk about Jesus. His glory will never enter into Jerusalem or be sought after by the Greek, because that's the part that people see and people love. People love to be praised. People love to be honored. But that's not how you receive glory. It's when you are buried that even no one sees your sacrifice. No one sees what's underground. But when you have that moment, being buried and die, the hidden time, the moment that you were hidden, that it transformed your life into a new beginning. So though that the grain of wheat died, but did you see that it was able to, the wheat was able to break the shell and begin a new form of living? Okay. So if you look at the saints, Elijah, right? Moses, he was hidden for 40 years. Elijah, by the brook, when the Lord hit him by the brook of Kerith, Kerith. Even Apostle Paul, after he was called, he was blind for 3 days and 3 nights. All those are the moments that they die and bury. Then it transformed into a new life. But that part usually is unknown, unseen, unappreciated, and no one applaud for you. The cultivation. But that dedication, willing to sacrifice, and not seeking to be seen is what transforms our life, that enable us to bear much fruits, much more grain, and receive glory. Okay, so we will take a break. Let's all pray in silence.